What's up, everybody? Today we are going to be talking about headphones and why you should be using them in your live stream. But before we do that, hit the subscribe button below. It's a huge favor that you could do for me so that we can continue to create content for you guys to enjoy. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and let's get to it. Okay, so first of all, what's the big deal with headphones versus speakers? Why does it matter? What are the pros and cons of each? And how does that apply specifically to live streams? Well, first of all, we have to take a look at the two options. We've got speakers and we've got headphones. Well, what are the benefits that speakers give us and what are the benefits that headphones give us? Well, let's start with speakers. If you have a pair of studio monitors set up, the benefits are you can move around the room freely. You can lean in, lean out. You could talk to your friends. You can ask the other people who are in the room with you how it sounds. None of these things are obviously possible with headphones. Another great benefit to speakers is that typically they have an amazing frequency range, meaning they can produce sound from 20,000 hertz, sometimes all the way down to 30 hertz, or some claim to go even lower than that. And if you do want to recreate that frequency response, you might be paying a much higher price for a headphone that would compare to a speaker with the same frequency range. Speakers are a wonderful option, but speakers usually only sound good in a well-treated room. You have to think about the speakers themselves and the room that they're in working together to actually create the sound you're hearing. You are never hearing just the sound from the speakers themselves. You are always hearing the direct sound plus the reflections that come from all around you. Now, this can be good and it can be bad. I enjoy mixing on speakers. Every mix that I starts on speakers, but at some point in that mix, I always reference it on headphones, and here's why. I love hearing the speakers react with the room, because that's how I hear most things in my life. When I walk down the street, when I'm in the store, anywhere I am, I'm hearing sound impacted by environment. And so when I listen to music in the same context, it's enjoyable for me to hear direct sound impacted by my environment. It makes it feel natural, and it gives me a better objective perspective on the mix. However, unless your room is tuned, treated, and set up just right, there are going to be discrepancies in the way that you're perceiving the music coming out of the speakers. So, we've talked about how speakers interact with the room. Well, as you can imagine, headphones remove the room completely from the equation. So, if you're in a less than desirable room situation, headphones, 9 out of 10 times, are going to give you a better representation of your mix than speakers will. Now again, they may not give you the perspective, they may not give you the flexibility, they may not even give you the frequency response depending on your specific setup and what products you own. But for the most part, headphones are going to give you a higher return on investment than your speakers would if you're in a less than desirable mixing space. Now, I would always encourage churches to try and have both. If you can have a pair of speakers and you can have a pair of headphones, that's excellent. Let's try and make a case study out of this. I have some friends at a church that we won't name in this video. They sent me a picture of their broadcast room, and it was as many broadcast rooms are. Small space, roughly the size of a large closet, and they had the screen and they had a couple speakers, and their mixer was sitting right in between the speakers. The speakers were wide, angled in, almost directly in his left and right ear. They were not really in front of him at all. Also, the speakers were all the way in the corners of the room. Now, this is a terrible mixing situation, and I told this church what I'm telling you now. If there's any way for them to get headphones, it would greatly improve their mix. And I've never even been in the room, but just by looking at it, you can tell this is not a good situation. Speakers in corners are bad because you're doubling up the problem of your room by putting the speaker in a corner where it's going to be reacting with two different walls in different ways. The second thing is that the speakers were so far wide to his left and right that the phantom center was going to be blurry and completely out of focus. If you don't know what a phantom center is, it's basically the phenomenon that happens when you're listening to two speakers, but the sound sounds like it's coming directly between them. Well, that's fine, but when your speakers are that wide in a room that is that untreated, that phantom center all of a sudden becomes blurry and disfigured. Therefore, you can't mix with the same kind of definition and clarity that you would be if you had the speakers set up properly and in a good room. What I recommended that this church do was get a small pair of iLouds. Put them right on the desk, right in front of the mixer, not far left and right, but right in front of the mixer, perhaps a slight angle in. And also get a set of headphones to mix on predominantly. I advise that they start their mix with headphones, that they mix most of the time on headphones, but every once in a while, take the headphones off and check on the iLouds to make sure that the perspective was still there, that they weren't so immersed in the headphone that they were losing focus on what really matters in the mix. Objectivity, obviously, is everything when you're mixing. So having the ability to switch back and forth was going to be a great move for this church. Now, let's talk a little bit about rooms. Why exactly are they good or bad? Well, as you can imagine, when a sound leaves a speaker and it goes and hits a wall, it'll bounce off that wall and bounce off another wall and another wall until eventually it comes back to the listener. The listener will then be hearing two sounds, one directly from the speaker and the other from whatever boundary it bounced off of to reach their ears. It could be directly off the back wall, hitting them from behind. It could be bouncing off of the early reflection points, or any combination of any wall, floor, ceiling in the listening environment. Here's what happens. The direct sound coming from the speakers hits your ear at one time. The sound coming from the boundaries hits your ear at a slightly different time. Now, we're only talking milliseconds here, but that's a lot when it comes to audio. Have you ever dealt with audio that is in or out of phase? Well, you know what happens. Audio waves are like this. And so if you have one audio wave that's hitting your ear like this, and the other audio wave is doing exactly the opposite, that creates a nulling or a canceling effect, and you will not hear that specific frequency. So what ends up happening in a lot of rooms is that the bass or low end gets completely mutilated by the reflections that are in the room. Sounds may bounce off walls and hit your ear at the same time as the speaker, creating a boosting effect in that signal. Or they may hit your ear at a slightly different time, creating a nulling effect in that frequency, resulting in you not hearing it at all. And it doesn't matter how much you turn up or try and adjust those specific frequencies, either with room tuning or other things, all you're doing is increasing the voltage of that frequency that's being nulled out, which is not going to result in any net gain. +5 plus -5 is still 0. +30 plus -30 is still 0. So the harder you push the frequency, the louder it's going to be coming off the boundary, and the result effect is still net 0. So we want to try and eliminate this. That's why recording studios are built out so meticulously and the speakers are placed so specifically, is so that the room is coordinated and is working with the speakers to produce the best sound possible. And obviously, this is probably not possible in a lot of church broadcast rooms. So that's why we recommend headphones being the primary way that you mix and having a set of speakers as a supplemental listening option. Now, maybe you're mixing in your auditorium, and so headphones are the only way you do it. Maybe you're using in-ear monitors or something like that. Well, I wanted to give you a couple headphone recommendations. Maybe you want to add them to your listening options. Maybe you want to replace your listening options. Well, here's some great options. Number one, the Apple Air Maxes. These are amazing headphones. These are by far my favorite headphones on the market at that price point. They beat every studio headphone that I've ever tried at that price point. And they're even closed back with noise canceling. It doesn't get much better than that. I have mixed tons of actual released records using these headphones. I've mixed Atmos with these headphones and Livestream with these headphones. They are excellent and all the way worth the money, especially if you can use the room canceling function. Another great pair of headphones that you guys might like are these. Audi's LCD-X. These are much higher. These are over $1,000. They are an open back pair of headphones. And if you don't know what open back is, you can check out another video online. They'll explain everything to you. It's too deep to get into here. But that is an excellent pair of headphones if you want the maximum quality possible, or if you're going to be replacing a good set of speakers, or maybe if you want to just add another high quality option to your already high quality system. If nothing else, the regular AirPod Pros produce a great sound as well. So the bottom line of everything is, if you already have a great speaker setup, that's been professionally installed and your room has been professionally treated, then you're probably in good shape, and your best option is maybe just to add a pair of headphones to your setup and use them as another option. If, however, you're in a typical church broadcast room with very little room treatment or an improper speaker setup, or maybe your room is just too small, you should highly consider replacing your speakers with headphones as your primary mixing option, and then using your speakers just as a supplemental option. 2 more rules of thumb before we close. If you're going to set up speakers in your room, make sure that they're as far away from the corners as possible. You want your speakers and your head to create a sort of a triangle. And so if you have a small room, that triangle is going to have to be very, very tight. But there should be equal distance between the 2 speakers and between the speakers in your head. So make it an equilateral triangle as tight as it needs to be to get those speakers away from the walls. Another rule of thumb: don't use any kind of room treatment if it is less than 4 inches thick. Now, can room treatment that's less than 4 inches thick still work? Yes, of course. And you will notice a difference, but it might not be a difference that really matters. What happens when you use thin treatment or non-dense treatment is that it'll stop some high frequencies, maybe up in the 5 to 10K range, but it's not going to stop anything below that. You need thicker material to stop the lower or mid-range frequencies. Now, in most broadcast rooms, you're probably not even going to be able to touch any frequency below 100 hertz. So you're going to have to make do. But if you have the ability to put up 4, 6, or 8-inch panels with a high density material, that is going to help you reduce those reflections and create a better listening environment for your speakers. Now, if all of this sounds too deep and sounds like something you don't want to get into, you should hire an acoustician. Somebody who can come in, help you place treatment in the right places at the right thickness to complement your room, because every room is different. And then they can even recommend a pair of speakers that would also complement the room you're in. So, hope that helps. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. We love answering questions and we would love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.